And so it gave me the hypothesis that yes, this is a central location, and we are in fact seeing shifting that creates cultures and civilizations to be destroyed and start over. And now, Graham Hancock has, the theory, and others do as well, of a civilization coming out of Antarctica and moving up into the South America regions and South Africa regions, and you know, suggesting that the Americas were recolonized from the South, and we have the oldest civilizations in the Americas, the oldest cities in Caral in Peru, which is an amazing site, and that goes back to 3000 BC. Dating that predates the pyramids in Egypt, according to our mainstream historians. But there's another interesting thing with these, with first of all with our central point, and second of all with the lines that I've tediously studied through all my videos on this channel, and it's the fact that these lines cut through the major river deltas of the world. Now, if we look at a map, I pulled this out of a sedimentology book. We can see here, and I highlighted in red, all of the major river deltas where you have the largest lode deposits, indicating the strongest rivers in the world. And what we have here, we have the Mississippi, we have the Amazon Delta, we have the Nile Delta, we have the Tigris Euphrates, we have the Ganges, and the Yangtze. Okay? So if we go back to Google Earth and we follow this line here, what we have is the an intersection with our Nile Delta, and it cuts through Cairo. And if we follow this line, it takes us straight to the Amazon Delta. Now, if we follow our other line, what is very interesting is it actually comes through the Hellespont, which is the entrance into the Black Sea. You have Troy, which was here, which was the trigger of the Trojan War, was this axis into the Black Sea for the rich trade. And this was one of the, this, you had Thrace, and you had the Colchises, or Colchis, which was has a very interesting background. That's where Jason and the Argonauts went, and the Egyptians claim that their former pharaoh Sesostris was involved with conquering this area. While mainstream historians deny this, Herodotus claims that this is true, that he witnessed the pillars which were erected by Sesostris, in which he engraved a woman's genitals when the local towns which he conquered would just give up without a fight. He would raise a pillar and inscribe a woman's genitals to signify that their men were no better than the women. And not only that, you have an interesting type of multiplication. It's a binomial multiplication that you find in Egypt and Ethiopia. And you also find this multiplication in Russia. And these are the only places where it's found, and it indicates that there was this transfer of culture. Herodotus also talks about the only places in the world which practiced circumcision at the time were Egypt and Ethiopia, and Colchis, which was this area right here. So there seems to be a strong amount of evidence that suggests that this is a true story, and that Sesostris was potentially a pre-dynastic pharaoh. And that may be where the controversy is strong, because modern historians don't like to admit about the pre-dynasties that Herodotus mentions in his accounts. So the Hellespont was an incredibly important area, and we crossed directly through that. Now, if we continue through our line, we come directly to the Mississippi River Delta. Now, if we come back through and we go east, we have a direct intersection with the Tigris-Euphrates River Delta. And if we continue on this line, once again, we have a direct intersection with the Ganges River Delta. Now, I found something else interesting was that if I were to take a measurement or make a line through my central axis point, and if I were to come through the Chinese pyramids, I'll zoom in on the pyramids for you so you can see them. Here's the Chinese pyramids here. So if I were to cut through these pyramids, it's going to take me directly through the Yangtze Delta. And these are all, once again, these are all the largest deltas in the world. And I don't think that's an accident at all. What I think we're seeing here is, like I said, these ancient cultures mapped out an axis mundi. They mapped it out. They understood the Earth, and these river deltas have to do with these rotations that the Earth makes at odd times, and they have to do with this area here, which is the center point. And I believe that all of our physical models of the Earth are incorrect, and that the electric universe theory is going to lead us to an understanding one day of what exactly is happening here, and why and how they were able to map this out and understand where our central point of the Earth was, why these are the oldest cultures in the world, and understand why exactly these river deltas show up where they do. So if we continue on and we look through, I found this map, which was in a book written by, you know what, I'll post it in the video. She wrote this book. Her father was a missionary in China, and he preserved these ancient maps. And the map is, she claims to be a very old map that extends from the myth of the Fusang. Now, the Fusang was a tree that was considered to be, it's considered to be in the north. And so if we look at this map here, now I rotate it, this is considered to be Fusang, I believe, was what she's saying here. And this is the original orientation of the map that she perceived, and that modern scholars accept. And so we can, we envision this being China, and she wants to say that this is India, this is Africa, and this is the Americas here, surrounding the world. And so these would be the great oceans, and these would be the Americas. So she's claiming that the Chinese had covered the Earth and mapped it out. Now, I found a few problems with this, and I was able to follow the coast here, and I found that this is the representation of India here, and that this would be Africa. And modern scholars just say, you know what, a lot of this is just made up. They just started making this up. However, if you were to look down here, which would be Australia, it says something White Lake. And so if we were to go into Google Earth, You know, we go in here. Wow, we see white lakes all over the place. There were oceans over Australia, and um, you can see all sorts of highly saline lakes, which would describe White Lake. And so I found some strong connections that suggest that a lot of these places are correct. And I was able to follow the rivers in and had great success with it. Now, when I was researching this map, however, I discovered that when I rotated the map, it looked an awfully lot like the world globe. It looked a lot more like a globe to me than this direction here. And, you know, I thought this was Europe. This could be Africa here. Here we would have India, and here would be the Sunderland shelf, while we would have China here. And then here we would have the Americas. And I thought perhaps there was some sort of duality to this map, because maps were extremely rare in the ancient times, and they were extremely valuable. There's an occasion where an assassin of a Chinese emperor, I believe of the Shang dynasty, was able to get extremely close to the emperor and nearly assassinate him because he claimed to have maps. And within the maps, he hid a knife that he was going to kill the emperor with. However, that's just a story that shows you how powerful a map was. And so if a map were to fall into the wrong hands, it could be disastrous, because they could lead their armies through your lands without getting lost and knowing exactly where they need to go. So if they did incorporate some sort of double meaning into this map, perhaps to represent older times or to disguise the true terrain, or just to create a stronger, closer view of their immediate terrain, and then when the map was flipped, it gave them the view of a world terrain. So here we would have Upper Asia, and then here's Europe, and into the name escapes me right now, but into the Baltic, I believe. And then we would have the Mediterranean here. This is the Atlantic. This would be the Indian Ocean. And so this really started to make a lot of sense to me. It really looked real. It looked like a great map. And not only that, if we zoom in, we can see here where would be the Red Sea, we have something called the Red River. And where we would have the Black Sea, where the Mediterranean would have gone into, we have what is called the Black River. And so there's just a lot of interesting ideas. And here we have a land in Europe called the 12 Barbarian Lands. And we all know that the barbarians were what were the Gauls were known as by the Romans and by the Greeks. And the Chinese used that term as well for the Mongols, the Mongolians. So there's a lot of interesting connections when we look at this map. And when we look at the central point, our center of our world map, potential world map, puts us right here, right in the center of the axis Mundi. And so, while at this point, I believe that the evidence is growing and growing, and one day this will be able to be proven scientifically, whether or not we witness something, or whether or not the electromagnetic universe theory being front run by the Thunderbolts project takes hold and leads us into enlightenment.